Reverse there. We be back. Yes, it's true. We be back for lesson number 25. Who'd have thought we'd survived at 25? But we're still here, and we're still going. Give me an R. Give me another R. Put them all together, and they indeed say R. It was a spell. R. I've only done that 25, well, maybe even more times than that, and I still get it wrong. That's the glory of being a pirate and of being online with you here. That I just ramble all the piratey stuff. Now, you've been thinking, should I be recapping things and covering things again, in case you missed it the first time? But I thought, no, that'd be boring. Maybe I should do a log, right? Put in the ship's log and record all the different episodes, right? And what you can see, if you want to learn something, you go back to a different log if you haven't seen them all and all that kind of stuff like that. So maybe that's the way we should do it, in a piratey sort of way. Do a ship's log. Because I'm thinking we're just going to plough on until they pull down the curtain, all right? On the old captain and all that. And cover more things. So we'll do more new things as we go along. And we'll keep doing stuff. Of course, every now and then we'll do a pirate laugh. Give our feet apart. Head up high and laugh. And, you know, your port and starboard and all that sort of stuff. But generally, we're just going to keep ploughing on with new stuff, right? Next week, I'm thinking, we'll do it back to some adventures. I'll do some more piratey adventures. Some of the great victories of some of the pirates, all right? So we'll do some more of those, all right? But this week, we're doing some more facty sort of stuff. Little factoidy stuff. All right, so now, last week, right, I talked about careening. Right, that was when they were pulling the ship up. Remember Drake, and he pulled his ship up, right? So it could careen over and they could clean it off and all that kind of stuff, and the high tide and all that sort of stuff. So somebody asked, right, now, Captain, what happens? What do you do if the ship needs, you know, care and all that kind of stuff? Where do you take it when it's a sick ship? You know, what do you do? What do you do? And you say, well, we take it to the dock. No, but it's true. The dry dock. There's a thing called a dry dock, right? So what you do is you sail up to the dry dock, right? Outside the dry dock. And then they use the pulleys and winches like we did before to ease her into the dock there like that. And then they seal it behind it, right? And then they pump out all the water. And it's got a little cradle there, right? And the boat settles down into the cradle. And then people can get around and work on it normal like. Which means it's a lot safer than having to tie it over with ropes and all that kind of things. Because if you don't secure the ropes properly, many a captain goes astray by tying up to wrong sort of trees. You know, they put those low-rooted trees at the coastline, tie up to a few of those, and they get pulled out by the ship and rocks back and crushes people, all sorts of problems. All right, so dry dock be much safer, right? So just the way we ought to do it, the old dry dock, that'd be right. And, you know, it's important to keep a ship clean and repaired and all that kind of stuff, because you know, more pirate ships got sunk, right, by bugs and, you know, and things like that ate into the hull and all that sort of stuff, and the bristles and all that kind of stuff, then got sunk by cannon. And also, when you got all them barnacles and stuff and that, it slows you down. You want a slick hole so you can shoot through the water quick, like when you're trying to escape and all that kind of stuff, right? Right, that's what you always do. And then people say, do the pirate ships used to sink often? Well, only once, I think. Once they done once, that's probably enough, right? But yeah, so anyway, now go. People ask the Beatrice, right? You talk to the Beatrice, beautiful Beatrice there like that. They say, how do you keep it looking so ship-shape and Bristol fashion? You know, and looking so young and healthy. Like it looks, you know, that 100-year-old ship's a couple 100-year-old ship there, right? Still looks vibrant like that. How do you do that? Well, it's boat docks. No, it's not true. You know, it's keeping good care and put it in the dry dock and looking after it that way. That's the way we used to look after our ships, right, in the old days. Now, but you don't see as many of these around anymore, do you? You don't really see them around as much as you used to, right? Why is that? Because they've been replaced. Happened in the mid-1800s, right? Early to mid-1800s. Suddenly, they started appearing all these steamships. Steamships, yep. End of the Industrial Revolution, they've been doing steam for everything else, and they went, we're going to make boats with steam. Crazy stuff. No, it's true. Steamships, right? They started off here, like this one here, right? The Rose, this is. Get that nice and close. Rose, the Rose, right? This is the Rose, right? She used to be a steamship. See that little there, that round thing there? That's a big paddle steamer, right? See, it's got a chimney because it's got like a big stove they used to put for the coal and all that kind of stuff. And then they would just paddle along, and that would be driven along by that. Early on, right, because they needed so much coal to do it. For the longer journeys, they'd have to use sail and all that kind of stuff. The Rose, right? The Rose was one of the first steel old steamers, right, that came out to work around the coast of Australia, right? They came out, the Rose, the Shamrock, and the Thistle. Good Irish name is those one, I guess, you know. They all come over, right? Scottish name, or Gaelic there. They all came over. What they did is they packed up their actual paddles, right, for the paddling, and just used the sails to come over because it was so far and they got over that. But once they were around here, they used the 60 milers, right? So they used to travel from Sydney up to Newcastle and Morpeth, right, to pick up coal and all that sort of stuff up there, and the goods that they were growing up in the Morpeth, right? For that was they were feeding the Sydney colony, right? And the rolls, that was one of the first ones to come over, and they were the first ones made out with a steel hull, right? Because the steel worked better as they got along, right? But that was what the rolls there, okay? But yeah, basically they work with a big paddle and a big stove, which could be dangerous, you know, the big stove, right? That port, we talk about Newcastle again, right? It used to be really very dangerous before they built the beach in there in between the island of Nobbies, right? And turned it into a headland all that way. They used to actually just be an island, right? So the boats would come in and they'd think they could sneak in a big storm, those big southerlies we talked about before, right? And they would be getting there, and suddenly the waves would be crashing over them, and they're there when they got around, try to get around Nobbies, and they think, oh, I think we've got to go back out. And they would turn and go back out, but as they would turn in and go back out, waves would crash over the deck, put out their engine, right, put the fire out. Once it was out, they had no way to go forward, and the wind would just push them across over into the reef on the other side, right? And if you go up there, even today, there's lots of wrecks there as it's scattered along. The old breakwater, they built a breakwater on top of where the wrecks were, because there's a little reef there and all that sort of stuff. But that was one of the issues with these steamships when they started off, right? But gradually they got better and faster, right? And, you know, because it cost money with the coal and all that to do it, to run them, they went for the high value targets. So a lot of them end up being passenger ships as well, you know, really all the things they get money for. And they could do that faster than a sailing boat. So sailing boats were left to do jobs like coal, just carrying coal across the Atlantic and stuff like that. They used to do that. But in fact, gradually they became to take over, right? And the big change was later on in that, they worked out the propeller idea, you know, the screw propeller, which is the way you think, like, turns around and makes the boat go at the back like that. Once that happened, that was sort of the death knell of the old sailing ship as a working ship, because that was much more efficient. And also, because, like this one being a steel hull, having a propeller at the back puts a great deal of pressure on the actual wood at the back, so you need more wood and all that kind of stuff. So it became cheaper to build the boats out of steel, which again, suited those kind of boats. And eventually, these boats started going out, you know. And there was less treasure ships and all that kind of stuff. So pirating started to fade out a bit there. And that was the end of the golden age of piracy. As I went off and did the steam. Other interesting thing about these steamships, right, is this boat would have been the SS Rolls, right? SS before it, you know, like HMS and all that. SS. You think, them sailors, you said they weren't tricky. Well, they're not. What do you think SS stands for? Steamship. See? Easy stuff. You know that now. Next time you see an SS, oh, it's a steamship, right? Or an MV, motor vessel, all right? That's it. Not real clever, not real tricky. They just make you think, oh, I know that now. And it's just stuck back in your brain pan for later on, right? So that's the important things that happen with the old steam vessels, right? And so pirating started to disappear a little bit, right? Are they pirates today, you say? Oh, so look at me, you daft blighter. I'm here, I'm a pirate. But I'm not the only one. In fact, piracy, up until this, you know, COVID-y time that we're going through now, which has made things all a bit bizarrely confused, was actually been on the increase. Over 500 reports of piracy every year. That's more than one a day, right? They're just the ones they report, right? And these pirates are still out there going and plying their trade, all right? Just, you know, some things have changed, like they don't have the old walking the plank anymore, and they're not really wearing eye patches and stuff like that. And, you know, and they don't use a cutlass. Nowadays, they use weapons like the AK-47 and those rocket launchers, right? Okay? And instead of, you know, eye patches and charts and maps and stuff like that and the logbooks, right? They use GPSs, right? And night vision goggles and all that sort of stuff, right? So they've changed. But they're still using speedy small boats, right? Then doing like me, you know, the same tactics like that. You know what I was saying about, you know, the Beatrice being a quick vote around the coast and all that kind of stuff. Same thing, but they use speedboats now and they zoom up and they catch them, right? And what do? They do similar sorts of tactics as well, right? Similar sorts of tactics as well. It's like they tend to attack cargo ships, right? In the big cargo ships, they'll go out and take them over, right? They'll take over a cargo ship. And it actually, they'll hold them for ransom, right? And what happens is, sometimes they'll maroon the crew, but generally they just hold the ship for ransom, right? Still doing the marooning, still there, right? You know, bang them together, right? Still doing that kind of stuff, right? But they'll do the ship, and it's cheaper, right, for those shipping companies just to pay off the pirates than worry about trying to get rid of them and do all that kind of stuff. So they'll just pay them off, right? And so again, that's that tactics we're talking about by having a good relationship with your victims, right? That kind of stuff. You can get paid off, and that's low risk for everybody. So that's a good thing, you know. Some of those pirates get a bit adventurous, right? A bit adventurous. And take on cruise liners, and they think, because you rob all the crew of all the diamonds and stuff like that, and then you got all the food and drink and all that sort of stuff, which makes it a bit attractive, right, if you struggle for a meal at all and all that kind of stuff. But generally, these days they do the cargo ships, and that's the way they operate, you know. Of course, I said they don't use a cutlass, but many of them will wave a machete or two to be intimidating and all that kind of stuff. And the machete actually is a descendant of the old cutlass, right? That's why the cutlass developed too. So the cutlass, if you think of a machete blade, right, they don't have the handle there like that in the cover, right, to put your hand for the punching bit of it. But they tend to be used for the same things like that. And they're a slashing tool, and that's where the old machete comes from, right? It's, where the cutlass stuff ended up doing as it got less specialised and all that kind of stuff. So we get more of that kind of tool. So that's a different way. All right, now what else was I going to cover, right? We talked about all that kind of stuff. Oh, and one last thing that's very similar to them. If you think about the areas where the pirates rove, right? They're in East Africa, the South China Sea, South America and the Caribbean. That's where the pirates mostly operate now. So, right, that's where you'd probably meet a pirate, right? Although you probably don't want to meet a pirate these days, because not all of them are as friendly as me. That'd be right, because, I'm supplementing my income by chatting to you lot and that kind of stuff, and doing other things. But, these pirates and all that. Oh, another thing about the rolls. Remember the rolls? Something I was going to tell you about the rolls, right? All right, there was a young lass that was born on the Rose, right? Born on the Rose, on the journey coming over, right? Because it takes months and months and months for them to used to get over here. The record for sailing from England to Australia, right, when on sail, it used to be about 65 days, right? 65 days. Actually, there's a good story about that record, right? All right, there was a guy over there, captain, he was going to break the record, right? He was in the best ship. And he was the best sort of guy, a bit like that Shane Warne fella you got these days. Right? About really full of himself, he thought he was really good, right? And so he was there, and he was all there in that big pomp and ceremony. He was a star captain of the day, They went, he'll be sailing there, and he'll be breaking the record from London to Melbourne, all right? Actually, probably was Portsmouth to Melbourne, right? So he's going to break it all from England all the way down, right? He was going to do it, right? The captain, and they thought, that'd be right. And what happened was, they hit the doldrums, right? Remember the doldrums? That means when there's not enough wind, that? So the record got blown out the window. So after that, this captain lost interest altogether, right? Altogether, right? And what happened is, as they were passing down the bottom of Victoria there, right? They got in too close to the shore, and they tried to get the captain up. There was a big storm, they got bottom of there. And they tried to get the captain up, right? Just to help them solve their problem. But, they said, he was too busy playing cards with a 19-year-old female passenger to come up and take over the ship, right? And so, what happened? They ran aground and the whole ship sank, right? And that was the first naval case, right, in Australia, where they actually, tried that captain for negligence, right? And he got 2 years jail, right? That was the first naval case in Australia. And it was because he couldn't be bothered once there was no record. He just thought, I might as well enjoy myself and play some cards with this here lass, all right? And so that's another little tale. You get all these little facts, which may not be of any interest to you, but they keep coming out. What can I say? What can I say? All right, now, I'm going to finish off with a couple more of these sayings, a few more of these sayings, right, that you have. Oh, Rosina, right? I was talking about Rosina, the birth. All right, the Rosina, right? She was born on this airship, right? And because she was born on the ship, they have to register your birth as your first place of port after that. So she was said to be born in Sydney because that's where she landed in the ship when the Rose came in, right? And that was Rosina. And her relatives, right, down all the years, ended up hooking up with his relatives, right? So that's two naval families, right? Two maritime families, because her father be a master on this ship, right? End up getting together, right? And that's what happens when you live around in an island in the sea, when people all come by boats, and they still come by boats, right? That's where we all come from. Boats, and that's how people get together, right? Because we live in a big island. That's just a little story there. I digress. Okay, I'm going to do 3 more sayings, and then we'll be getting ready for lesson number 26. Oh my goodness! Who would have thought it? Pick up tricks on 36. Or some other rhyme that'll come to me next week. Who knows? Who knows? All right, oh my God, hard up. You heard about being hard up. You got nothing left. You're up against it. You broke your skin, all that kind of stuff. Well, when a boat was forced by the weather to turn away from the wind, right? when they put the helm hard to windward, right, to turn away from the weather because it's just too much. That was called being hard up. You're hard up against the weather, so you had to turn over. And that's what it is, when you're up against it, you're broken, all that kind of stuff. You're said to be hard up, and that's where it comes from. And it's another maritime sail. See? And then when they say, I'm going to take you down a peg, you're that one, right? That wasn't really a piratey thing. That was more the Admiralty type stuff like that. Because what happened was, like our pirate flag, we'd either have it up or down and that kind of stuff, we would pretend to be in other ships and all that. But on those Admiralty boats, right, the flags were secured by a series of pegs, right? So they could have it at different heights. And so if they were passing some certain dignitary would go by, that would vary. They would vary the height of the thing. So if it was like the Queen or something, it'd be the top peg, right? And then the flag would be up as high as it possibly could. And if you were less popular or less important, they would bring it down a peg, all right? So they'd take you down a peg. And I suppose if you lost, sort of, they suddenly didn't like you anymore, they could bring you down and take it down a peg. And that's what it was. It was just basically taking it from this peg down to the next peg, all right? And that would alter the height of the flags. And that's what they call taking you down a peg, all right? That's where that comes from. And the last one was crossing the line. You've heard about crossing the line. It's when you cross the line, something momentous is about to happen. You've taken a big step, all right? Well, that's because we used to celebrate, right? And still do if you go to sea now. They celebrate when they cross the equator, crossing the equator line, right? They cross the line, all right? And that's something you celebrate. It's the first time a sailor crosses the equator, they have a big ceremony. They dress him up funny, like Neptune's sword and all sorts of things. They throw things all over him. They make him drink weird stuff and all that kind of stuff. So if ever you're on a boat and you're going to cross the equator and you've never done it before, there will be a big ceremony because crossing the line, the equator, was seen to be something that has something amazing and extraordinary. And that's where crossing the line comes from. So again, all these little phrases that you just think are part of everyday life, especially old everyday life. Now you're all got texting and emojis and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have no emojis on these boats, I don't think. Oh, wait a minute. Really? Oh, that could be something else. We had semaphore, right? Semaphore, which is basically the beginnings of emojis, right? Because it was flags that represented words, all right? So symbols representing words, which is basically what language is in anyway, I guess. But that's the kind of thing. So we could do some emojis even. So, it's all coming from the old pirates and the seamen and all like that. Anyway, we be done. That be it. We're all done. We're all ship and Bristol fashion. The Beatrice still looking beautiful. I'm here. We put the rose down. But we're all going to be piped down right now. We'll have a little bit of a nap. And we'll be back next week for lesson number 26. Oh my goodness, will we get to 30? Who knows? Who knows when the typhoon will come and take us all away? But for now, I think we'll just go back and have a nap. Or maybe we'll sing a shanty or two. But for me, I'm going to pipe us down. Arr. You be having a good time, my lovelies. Arr. There's there! See ya!